What's up guys, MikeCoco back here bringing you guys an Alena first impressions, and she was released last week but I haven't gone around and doing a review for her yet. But the first thing I want to say is that she's a very unique hero, and the reason why I say this is because her skill is very unique. Her skill reduces the fury cost for the skills around her. What this means is that any heroes around Alena will have reduced fury after Alena uses her skill, and Alena will also have reduced fury after she uses her skill. And this makes it very important because this is a very strategic move. It's basically using fury early so that you can reduce your fury costs later, and depending on your formation, it may or may not improve your team's efficiency. So first off, we're just gonna look at the stats. Stat wise, she's got 3k int, which is really good at 3-star, so her damage is going to be pretty good. Not the best because she's magic based, but she's going to be really useful against mobs with really high defense because magic damage penetrates through physical defense, so that's really good right there. Her skill is very unique. So what she does is that she uses 300 fury for her first turn. This is important. For initial skill usage, it will be 300 fury, and she does a 3x3 magic damage. And she also casts a magic dot, and this dot also ignores physical defense, so it also does slightly more than dots, for example, from Hyrule or a dot from Christine, because those are physical dots. This is a magical dot, and it will ignore physical defense. And after including with the skill, it also reduces the fury consumption for all the heroes around her. So there'll be this little icon. I'll show you guys when I get her to 50 and do a little gameplay. But basically what happens is that after her initial turn, after she uses 300 fury, all the heroes around her will experience half the fury costs for their skill. So for example, right now Alena is right here. If she uses her skill, her initial skill will cost 300 fury, and after that, Tome, Vlad, and Hyrule will all have. This is not good. Tome, Vlad, and Hyrule will all have reduced fury. So 200. So from 200 to 100, 200 to 100, and 200 to 100. So this is really useful because, as you can see, if the fury costs are lower for these three guys, that means we can basically set them to always use skill and have them use their skills all the time because the fury cost is so low. Now the part where the plan backfires is if you don't have enough fury to begin with and you utilize that 300 fury, then your heroes aren't going to be able to use any skills even though they have experienced lower fury costs. So pretty much with Alena, you always have to have her skill on always use, because what this means is that if she continually uses her skill will only cost 150 fury rather than 300. So basically, instead of casting her skill every other turn and hoping that it casts every other turn to lower her fury costs, if you set it to always use skill, she'll do damage, but she'll also lower the fury cost for everyone around her. So that's why it's pretty important to keep her skill to always use. If you don't set it that high, she's going to go at the end, and that's not going to be really useful either, because if you set her skill to go at the end, that means the people beside her might have already used her skill and they won't experience that lower fury cost. So it's very important to keep her at a high initiative, have her always use skill, because so far this is what it seems to work. Theoretically, it works on a theoretical level. And also with this is that I'm going to do a quick demonstration of what I mean in tower, just because there's like a setup I can show. So Alena again basically requires specific team formations. So what I'm trying to say is, theoretically speaking, she can have 4 heroes around her with reduced fury costs, but if you need a permanent stun on the boss, then that effectively only drops to 3, because for here you have to have Drake at these 2 positions or else you're not gonna get a permanent stun. So that means you have to either set them up against each other, so you might incur a bit of splash damage, or you set them all to the back. Either way, you have 3 heroes that experience lower fury costs. If you're at end game already and you don't really need the stun to survive, then of course you can just do this. But you know, that is for non-end gamers. They can clear pretty much everything without any events, so it doesn't really matter. So basically, these three guys will experience lower fury costs. And again, because you require 300 fury on your initial turn, that's a large portion of fury. That's 1/5 of your entire team's fury just gone through one skill. So pretty much what this means is that on the first turn you won't be able to do anything. If you had the first turn, likely no one's going to use your skill, because except for a fury thief at the end, because you have to set her very high and she's not going to use your skill. So it's only when you get to the second turn that you're able to use her skill, and all of these people will start being able to do lots of damage because they can always use your skill. Likewise, because you have to wait till the second turn, if you have shield inscriptions on your tanks, it's going to be a bit of a problem, because shield inscripts prevent any fury gain. So what this means is that if you have a lot of shield inscripts and you're planning to use Alena, I highly recommend a single target fury thief. Hyrule may or may not cut it, because after all he is still a multi-target fury thief. He does work very well for single targets, but it just doesn't compare to someone like Jester, who can draw 500 fury every turn, guaranteed. You know, no questions asked. If you want him to draw 500, he'll draw 500. It's as simple as that. So for shield users, you might want to watch for your fury, because if you only have 600 fury, she uses her skill 300 fury, you only have 300 left, you can't really do anything. Okay, so that's pretty important right there. But other than that, theoretically, on a theoretical level, she works pretty much perfectly. What this means is that because you have her skill set to always use, this also means that your team is constantly using your skill, so that means a lot more damage output. You know, instead of just using normal attacks a lot of the time, a lot of attacks would be skills. So that's pretty much it. At 5-star, I'll show her stats. Stats are pretty good at 5-star. 3.5k int. Comparing that to my, I don't know, like the best spellcaster I have, magic user is, let's see. I don't really think I have one, but Jury at 3-star is only around 3k int, and that's because there's this ring. So basically pretty much the same as Jury, you can think about it, in terms of stats. But other than that, you know, I'll bring you guys level 50 gameplay and you can decide for yourself. One tip I highly recommend is to use, like, just draw out your hero formation and then just do some calculations, you know, see if Alena will actually work, because right now she's not necessarily needed, but because her skill is so useful and unique, she's worth getting. But to determine whether or not you should actually use her on a daily basis in tower, you want to, you know, just draw out like a little map or something, calculate how much fury you have to use, and calculate how much that would change if you have Alena. If it doesn't change by much, then you can leave it out. If it changes by a lot, then you can sub her in, and maybe your damage will probably increase. So yeah, I'll be back with the level 50 gameplay with Alena, and that's it, guys. Peace. What's up, guys? MikeCoco back here with the level 50 Alena, and I have not unlocked her ring slot yet, so her damage is slightly lower, a little bit lower than Jury's because she doesn't have the ring. But for all, we can put that aside, because right now we're just gonna focus on her skill utility. So obviously, because Jury and Alena are both Tome users, I basically transferred whatever they were using, whatever equipment they were using, I transferred it to Alena. So we're just gonna put her in instead of Jury, and we'll see how it goes. So pretty much, because Drake is always used, well, I guess these guys are always used too, but if we set it up here, we set up like this, we'll have Karina set to always use, but I guess it doesn't matter. So pretty much what we want to do right now is see how efficient Alena's Fury skill, or Fury reduction skill, can help our team. So pretty much for the first turn, I don't think we'll be able to do much. We can barely rack up 300 Fury, so I highly doubt that we will be able to do anything at all. So yeah, we're gonna just get rid of some of this stuff first. Those altars are pretty annoying, and I highly doubt we'll have enough Fury to use her skill, but okay, maybe we will. So I'm going to use it right now. The first turn is going to be 300, so I'm going to target those guys. Damage is decent for the target, but for the other targets around her, not as good as I thought it would be. So right now you can see the yellow little signs. It means that they now use less fury. So when we go to her turn, or their next turn, you'll see that the fury usage has been decreased. So I'm running 3 shield right now, and we still racked up a decent amount of fury. What sucks right now is that this is a very good opportunity to show this, is that if you have the fury down rather, it's useful, but then when you get silenced, you can't really take use of it, because even though now it's 100 fury, you can't use any skills. So that's the problem. But generally, if you take out the silencers, it shouldn't really make a big difference anyway. So we can't use her skill. Wow, my entire team has been completely silenced. I cannot do anything. So we'll keep Alena to always use skill. That way we can keep her skill cost at 150. And right now, still not doing tons of damage. Not as much as I was expecting. Even with 6k. Oh, this is tower floor 80. But the dot does a lot of damage. Even if her initial skill doesn't do a lot, because 3x3s generally don't have very good scaling, but you know, for this unique skill, it might be worth it. So right now we had about 1100 fury ish, short of 12,000 or 1200 rather. So pretty much we're gonna see how well we can retain our fury just by using skills that we would regularly use. I should probably also demo this on auto to see how efficient she would be on auto, because on auto it might be a totally different story. And we'll just attack. So after all that, we used a few skills, did a few normal attacks. We racked up around 900 fury after. So still 150 fury. So this is why you want to keep her to always use skill, because that way she'll be able to wow, I didn't die. She'll be able to reduce her own cost, so that she won't have to spend 300 fury every turn, or every other turn, just to decrease her own skill usage, because 300 fury is a lot, and it's not something that you should be constantly using all the time. So now that I'm thinking about it, it might be more useful if we have Alena set up here, because I prefer having crits all the time. So what this means is that I will usually set up a what this means is that usually I'll set up Karina's skill to go, because I prefer Karina's skill to go right now rather than Chris's, because we have an event bonus right now. So logically speaking, it would make more sense. I'm just gonna get rid of that little thing, it's very annoying. So we basically used all our skills, and we haven't gone to a point where we need more fury. Like there hasn't been a point where we ran out of fury yet. So basically, if your entire team can survive the hits, gather full fury, then it's a pretty decent setup. There's not much that can go wrong. Right there you saw we racked up around 1,000 fury, or 900 rather. So it should be totally possible to have Alena set to always use skill, and just constantly using the skills around her. So I guess we should try that for the next test. But that's pretty much how she works. There's not much to it, but there's a lot of thinking on how you want to set up your formation and whose skills you want to use. So we'll try that again on auto this time. That way we'll just get to see if she's efficient on auto. So as I said before, I rather have what's it called? Well, I know Tome is always going to use her skill, because I set her initiative very high, so she's constantly going to be buffing. So that way, if we have her set to always use skill, then we can set Drake to always use skill too, which is also set. So we have these four or these three always set to always use skill. So that's basically it for auto. I don't think anybody else is supposed to go aside from Karina, but she's event. So we'll start this on auto. We'll see how it works. Likely speaking, first turn is not going to do much because again we don't have enough fury on the first turn to be able to do anything. So and hopefully my tank doesn't die. Might maybe die. Okay, didn't die. So we racked up around 1200 fury for the first turn. We set Alena to always use skill, and that actually happened very quickly. I did not get to see that. Now one thing I'm thinking is that because her skill animation takes a bit longer, you can't set her up, you can't set the others around her to go immediately, or else they will not take advantage of the fury down skill because the animation hasn't showed up. So technically speaking, they haven't been buffed yet. So right now we've buffed the front line. We have reduced fury. We've got 700 fury left over, which is actually okay for now. And what I'm seeing right now, just based off of observation, is that the people whose skill I want to use will use their skill, pretty much. The people who I don't really want them to use their skill won't go. For example, Calm, I don't really need him to go, but on the other hand, he doesn't have enough fury to go anyway, because right now I'm down to like 50 fury. So that might be a problem if you want a lot of people to use their skills, because right now I would prefer Neff using her skill, and she just did it right there. And basically what happened is, when you get down, so the only problem to this tactic is that if you're already low on fury, then you won't be able to do much. And it seems that even with shield inscription we can gather a lot of fury. I know Neff just died there, so we gained a bit more fury, but it seems like basically whatever just happened right there, we used like 900 fury. So what I would recommend is get her in your team, experiment, try to move her around, change some initiatives, set some to always use, set others to not always use, and that way you'll be able to figure out how much you're actually going to use in a typical battle. And that's pretty much my final recommendation. So right now we don't have enough fury, but it really doesn't matter. The boss has been cleared. We can take out these guys pretty easily. And the only one thing that I have to mention is that it might be similar to Morgana's attack up buff. Because it is considered a buff, that means anyone who removes buffs, for example, who removes buffs? I think like Angela and Illuria, they remove buffs. If you have like any enemy like that, then they can remove the fury usage skill, which could affect your team. It might be a bigger significance in Affinity Wars, but for example Frank, if he targets Alena and removes her fury skill down, it might affect some formations, but other than that, there's pretty much nothing that stops Alena's skill. So that's pretty much it, guys. You gotta just figure out how to use her and when to use her. There's no solid what should I say, there's no solid rule to say you should use her at this initiative and in this placement. You gotta figure it out for your own team and see how it works. Obviously it's gonna be better if you have a 3-3 formation, because you can just set them all up against each other and you'll have 4 heroes that are experiencing reduced fury. But even with a 4-4-1 formation, still works quite decently. You're not gonna run out of fury a lot of the time. So that's pretty much it, guys. Peace.